Tropical storm watches are in effect for areas of the Caribbean islands, and we have a hurricane brewing off the eastern Pacific coastline of Mexico. Good evening, I'm Mike Naso with this Wednesday night update on the tropics. From left to right on the screen, we have Hurricane Norma here in the eastern Pacific getting stronger, headed towards Category 2 or 3 intensity, and it should move very, very close to the Baja, although it might stall out just south of there. We'll talk about Norma. We have an area of disturbed weather in the Caribbean. We'll watch this area this time of year, but nothing down there right now. And then we have a new tropical storm, and this is a tropical storm forecast to get close to hurricane strength and move through or come very close to some of the areas there of the Leeward Islands and potentially the U.S. Virgin Islands, and we will talk about that. This is our first system, Tropical Storm Tammy. As of 11 p.m. Eastern Time, Tammy was at 13.0 north, 53.1 west, winds of 40, so it's a minimum tropical storm. But it is on the uptick right now. It's slowing down a little, moving west at 17. And we do have tropical storm watches out for Barbados, Dominica, Martinique, and Guadeloupe. And this is all with the expectation that these tropical storm winds could come pretty close to these islands. I'm actually kind of surprised that Barbados is under the watch. It's kind of far south, but they're thinking this system may take the southern edge of the track and some of these winds might expand. It should be a hurricane in the longer range as it moves north, but right now it could potentially become a hurricane before the islands. It might stay a little bit further off and be weaker, stronger. There's a lot of uncertainty, but right now if you are in those islands, watch this system very, very carefully. Here's the satellite imagery, and again, it's not terribly well organized, but it's getting better. It's consolidating some convection there. The wind shear around it is not too unfavorable. It's kind of got a little bit of a safe harbor here that it's moving into, and that should allow some intensification over the next 24 to 48 hours as it gets close to the islands. Now, here's the long-range European ensembles, and they take Tammy right on off, very smooth, a very smooth curve right out to sea, and that seems to be the Hurricane Center's thinking right now. This is in contrast to the GFS, which want to take Tammy back around and kind of hang out here and potentially move back west. Obviously, there's a big difference in the track there, and you can see that even better here. Here's the European taking the system near or close to the islands and then moving on out. And here's the GFS model, taking the system near or close to the islands and then kind of looping them all around. We have systems. One comes all the way back towards Grand Bahama Island, one goes over Bermuda, one comes between Bermuda and Hatteras. That's much farther to the west in the very long range, too. You're talking 240 hours. That would be if the system ends up getting left behind and a rebuilding ridge of high pressure bends it back west. We've seen that in the past. Right now, we know that in the shorter term, it's going to be very closer over the islands and then a turn to the north. And hopefully we get it on out, but we'll watch this GFS solution just in case. Here's another look at the water vapor imagery. And again, as the system moves into this more favorable environment, we will see strengthening. So there's always the potential that it could become a hurricane. So if you're in the islands, watch it very carefully. We have the tropical storm watches in effect, Martinique, Guadeloupe, Dominica, and Barbados right now. Another good wave off Africa, but that is pretty much done this time of year. It looks like Tammy will probably be the last storm off Africa. It's been a very busy year off of Africa in the Atlantic. We have area here of disturbed weather north of the islands and this area in the western Caribbean, but neither one appears to be anything. Right now the focus will be on Tammy as Tammy moves towards the west-northwest. The key messages on Tropical Storm Tammy from the National Hurricane Center. This was as of 5 p.m., but as of 11 p.m., tropical storm conditions are possible across portions of the Lesser Antilles beginning on Friday. And we have those watches out. And additional watches and warnings are probably going to be required throughout the day Thursday, so keep tuned to that. Secondly, heavy rains from Tammy will begin to affect the northern, Windward, and Leeward Islands on Friday. That will spread into the British and U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico over the weekend. And this heavy rainfall may produce isolated flash urban flooding, isolated mudslides, especially in areas there of higher terrain. So again, this is not just going to be the Leeward Islands and the Windward Islands. This is going to spread all the way to the U.S. Virgin Islands and Puerto Rico as Tammy pools to the west-northwest. Now, in the Eastern Pacific, we have a hurricane. This is Hurricane Norma. Now, last week we had Hurricane Lydia slam into Mexico as a Category 4 hurricane, a very intense storm. Norma should not get quite that strong. Right now, winds are 90 miles per hour. It's at 16.4 north, 108.0 west, moving north at 8, and it's being steered by some troughiness and ridging that will gradually weaken, and we could see a stall. So right now, the forecast has it as a hurricane Saturday night right along the tip of the Baja, and then weakening to a tropical storm. But again, it could be even slower than this, and it could be weaker, it could be stronger. Right now, they're thinking that Norma will become a Category 3 hurricane Thursday and then gradually weaken as it moves towards the Baja. We will keep an eye on it. The key messages, number one, it is forecast to rapidly strengthen through Thursday into that major hurricane offshore. And secondly, there's greater than normal uncertainty in the track and intensity for Norma later this week as it approaches the Baja. An increasing threat of wind, rainfall to areas there, the southern Baja, California by Saturday. And there's probably going to be some watches on areas of Thursday night there. We're going to watch that as the system continues to move closer. Here's the satellite imagery as the sun went down. Look at it bubbling right around the eye, right there. That wrapped around the eye, very tight core. This is definitely a hurricane of 90 miles per hour, probably approaching 100. And again, it's getting rather close, but it should move in that direction over the next couple of days. We'll watch Hurricane Norma. So again, Norma in the Pacific, Tammy in the Atlantic. Watches and warnings are going to be out for the islands and for Mexico, and we will watch both systems. I'm Mike Naso with the latest on the tropics. Please subscribe and stay tuned.